Hi folks, this is Lee W. Mowen, the host of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast. I've been hosting my podcast on Anchor for some time now, and let me tell you why it's the easiest way to make a podcast. When you host with Anchor, you have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or phone. Anchor then distributes your podcast for you so others can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can even make some money with your podcast with no minimum listenership required. And best of all, it's 100% free. It truly is the one-stop shop for those looking to start a podcast. To start, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor. It's time for episode 144 of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, and our special guest is Larry Hansgen, the broadcasting voice of the University of Dayton Flyers and the host of Miami Valley's Morning News on WHIO Radio. We're talking Flyers, 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 in this high-flying episode of the local Cinday Sports Podcast. Welcome to the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast with Lee W. Mowen. This is a weekly podcast covering all sports in Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio. From Lima to the Ohio River and northern Kentucky, from eastern Indiana to Madison County and all points in between, this is your source of local Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio sports. Visit the leewmowen.com/podcasts to find your favorite podcasting platform. Music created with the Splash app. Time for another episode with your host, Lee W. Mowen. This is episode 144, and I'm very happy to have aboard Larry Hansgen. You might know Larry from the Dayton Flyers or WHIO Radio. Larry, good morning, and it's a pleasure to have you aboard.
Good morning, Lee. Good to be speaking with you.
So, Larry, let's begin. Where are you originally from?
Originally from Columbus. Went to Northland High School, graduated from there in 1975, and then went up to Bowling Green State University, graduated from there in 1979.
So how did you wind up from Columbus and Bowling Green to down here in Dayton, Ohio?
Well, initially, I was working at a radio station in Newark, Ohio, part-time. Moved back in with my parents and was working full-time at a sporting goods store and just working Sunday mornings at a Newark radio station, obviously trying to find full-time work. And I was kind of frustrated. And so someone came in the sporting goods store and said, hey, I help out with sports at this Johnstown radio station, which is just northeast of Columbus. And they're probably looking for someone. And so he gave me the guy's number, and I called him up, and he said, yeah, we'd love to have you. So I turned in my notice at Bryan, and the guy there said, wow, I didn't know you were interested in doing stuff like that. He goes, I went to college with a guy at OU who, this was in Newark. He works, his college buddy lives in Bryan, and he goes, it seems like they do a lot of stuff. You ought to give him a call. So I was getting ready to head out the door for my training at the radio station at Johnstown. And on a whim, I gave the call up to Bryan. And it just so happened that the program director and the general manager were sitting down having a meeting and saying, man, we're in a bind. We need to find someone that can, do an air shift and can also do some sports and then, maybe have a couple of sales accounts and just need, someone that can do a lot of things. And a phone rang, and it was me. So they said, we'd love to talk to you. How soon can you be here? I go, I'll jump in the car now. So I called the Johnstown station. I actually quit a job before I even began it, and got the job in Bryan and was there for about a year and 4 months, and was trying to move up into a larger market, and saw the WHIO was a ratings giant in Dayton, and kind of made a best of myself and got hired for an overnight shift, making $175 a week, and And well, they offered me 175. I held out for 215 because that's what I was making in Bryan. And I said, come on, I can't go backwards. And I did that for, really all of a month. And then part of my job was to wake up the guy who was the morning show producer. And after a while, it would take several calls to do that. And after a while, the management said, well, we have the guy that's waking him up take over that job. I did that. Then I started doing the sportscasts. And then a year later, had the opportunity to start calling the Flyers games, but it wasn't as simple as that.
So tell me, how did you wind up as the voice of the Flyers? And what was your first season like?
Well, first season was the 82-83 season. And it would have been August of 82. Chris Harris, who had played at Dayton, had worked alongside Bucky for 10 years, was relocating to Seattle in the insurance business. And so that created an opening, and I raised my hand and said, well, I'd really love to do this. And my boss at the time, Ron Kempf, said, yeah, I think you'd do a good job. Yeah, I agree with you. Tom Frericks, who was the athletic director at the time, just said, no way. No way are we going to hand the keys to the car over to some kid who's, got very, very little experience. So they were all set to go with Marty Brenneman as their broadcast voice. But Marty just couldn't commit because of Red Spring training obligations. So they came back to me. They said, okay, well, let's see what you sound like. And so Bucky and I went into what was then a storage room, what's now part of the, I think it's a luxury box at the arena. And during the preseason practices, and this is October now, while the team was scrimmaging, if they would scrimmage, then we would do a fake play-by-play of what we saw, out there on the floor, and turned in the tape to Mr. Frericks, and he said, okay, I'd like to hear one more though. And so we did another, and he said, okay, kid, you got it. And to his credit, as much trepidation as he had about me doing it, I don't think I ever had a bigger supporter thereafter. And he would give me good critical feedback, because he would, when even a home game, he would not be in the seating bowl. He would sit up in that same dusty storeroom. And while he was watching the game, he was listening to the broadcast, and he'd have a big legal pad, and he would be constantly making notes. And, he was a guy that really hit home to me about, score in time. That's the most important thing. It's the next most important thing, and it's the third most important thing, in a broadcast. Anything else you have to say is really superfluous.
I never knew that about Marty Brenneman. He's one of my favorite baseball broadcasters, and I know he did some college basketball, but I never knew he was in line to do UD.
Yeah. And fortunately, I'm glad he said no.
Exactly. Now, what's changed from the 82-83 UD season to today in terms of broadcasting, the campus, your job? What's all changed?
Well, the things that have changed would be just the the technical aspects of which you got on the air. At that time, we relied strictly upon a telephone line, and we traveled with an engineer, and it was a great guy named Dick Johnson, and then Ron Geyer followed him, and these guys were just absolute wizards of fighting through the vagaries of telephone companies at the time, and being able to always get our broadcast on the air without fail. So that kind of jumps out at you. Because now it's we just use Ethernet connection. We use an internet connection, and it's it's proven to be very reliable and almost idiot proof, because we no longer travel with an engineer. So I had to do that. Obviously the travel has become this is a Dayton team now that charters everywhere. The only time they take a commercial flight is, to go to someplace like Maui. Took a commercial flight out to, no, we didn't. I think, we chartered out to Arizona even. So it's, it's it was high-end travel back then when I first started in the 80s. I mean, we always stayed at very nice hotels, but, it was strictly commercial flights. And so, if you played a game in Chicago on a Saturday night, you weren't going to fly out until Sunday afternoon. So, that's a big change. And then, obviously, I started off, the first couple seasons I broadcast, there was no shot clock. There was no three-point line. Think of how those have changed the game of college basketball. But I don't know, like me and coaches, players, fans, everyone, we've all adapted to it. And I think sometimes you have to sit back and really look back to think about how much change has actually happened.
And you mentioned no shot clock or three-point line either. And back then there was that tartan floor as well, which had to be removed for the newest renovation, UD Arena, which I always love seeing those pictures when it's time for First Four and seeing that floor just underneath and the history on that.
Well, if Coach Donaher called out Bama, that meant that they were essentially going to go to UD's version of a four corners, Dean Smith type of offense at North Carolina. And they would just hold the ball. If you had a lead, just hold the ball. You didn't have to take a shot. You could hold it for 2, 3, 4 minutes if you wanted.
There's been a lot of great games, a lot of great players and coaches that went through UD in your time. Who are some of your favorites that you've gotten to work with?
Well, I think I got spoiled right away in that the second season that I worked was the 83-84 season where they made that Elite Eight run, beating LSU, Oklahoma, Washington, and then falling out at Pauley Pavilion in the West Coast regional finals to eventual national champion Georgetown. You had Roosevelt Chapman, the all-time leading scorer in UD history on that team. And you had Hall of Fame players like Ed Young and Damon Goodwin on that team. And Anthony Grant was a freshman that barely saw the floor that year. So, that team, collectively, another Hall of Famer on that team was Cedric Toney. Cedric was one of my all-time favorite competitors. But then, you move forward and, a guy like Nigel Knight was so talented in his senior year, had as about as good a year as any individual has had for a season as a Flyer. Ryan Perriman, pound per pound, the best rebounder I've ever seen. A great competitor as well. Brian Roberts, maybe the best shooter / scorer that I've seen. I look at the Devin Oliver, most charismatic player. And you go to the team that went to 4 straight NCAA tournaments, that trio of Scoochie Smith, Kyle Davis, and Kendall Pollard. I almost treat them as one individual because I don't think you could separate them from each other because they had such a collective impact. And then, oh my gosh, maybe I saved the best for last. And, Obi Toppin. I said to Coach Grant, I think Obi might be more popular than Roosevelt. And he wasn't ready to concede that. But, consensus player of the year in the nation, just absolutely put on a show. And you got he's jam, and then you got peanut butter, first team all conference guard, and Jalen Crutcher. I don't have to comb through my memory banks to find great players in Flyer history. All I got to do is think back about last season.
And you mentioned Obi and you mentioned Jalen Crutcher too, because the NBA draft is right around the corner, and it's looking like those Flyers might be drafted. And what's your thoughts?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Jalen is doing what Obi did last year, that is test the waters to get feedback. And unfortunately, he's not going to have the opportunity to go work out in front of teams and get that hands-on type of thing that Obi was able to get, and then bring that back to have the incredible year he had this year. So I fully I would be shocked if Jalen kept his name in and that he did not come back for his senior year. Obi, it's not a question of if, it's just, how high is he going to go? And I think he'll be a lottery pick.
I think so, too. I mean, how electric were those dunks and the play of Obi Toppin, or this squad? How special was this season to UD fans?
Well, they had such joy in each other's success, and that is something that I will remember them for more than anything. It was the joy with which they played the game, and the fact that they really, really, really just enjoyed the heck out of each other's success. It was, they would share the ball so well, and it was not, it was genuine. It was not nothing contrived. It was their DNA. I think at times they were surprised that people commented how unselfish they were, because to them, that's just what they did. They're like, well, how else would I play? And that was really cool.
It's just great to see Dayton have that much success, and just 2 overtime losses on the season to Colorado and Kansas on neutral courts, and run rampant through the A-10. I mean, that's a very special Flyer team that we got to see.
Yeah, and the A-10 had some pretty. I mean, there was some solid competition there. I think that if all is said and done, come Selection Sunday, had there been a Selection Sunday, I think we would have seen at least 3 teams in. I think St. Louis was a NCAA caliber tournament team. I think Richmond was. Obviously, the Dayton Flyers were. And Rhode Island maybe could have stolen the automatic, but even their at-large resume wasn't too bad. And you know what? These teams all had, quote, losses that hurt their NCAA stock. Well, they were to the Dayton Flyers. St. Louis loses twice to Dayton. What would their record look like? Same for Rhode Island. Richmond had a phenomenal year. They get beat at home by Dayton. I don't think that would have been held against them.
No, I mean, what would that be now? The quad 1 loss?
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the heartbreak of the ending, because the Flyers not only didn't get a taste of March Madness, but there was no A-10 tournament. How much do you think that the coronavirus really hurt the fans around here?
Well, it's going to leave players, coaches, fans, everyone wondering what if. Just because there was a sense of there was a lack of closure, if you will, after all was said and done. And but at the same time, I think it was good that the final regular season game. It was such a celebration. It was such a celebration because they were able to cut down the nets and all that, and the seniors spoke, and Coach Grant spoke, and after game day had been there, it really had it was a championship celebration. So I'm very, 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 very glad that happened.
You mentioned earlier that you got to see Anthony Grant play with the Flyers. How special is it to you and Flyer fans that a former player is now leading the team as the head coach?
Well, I think what it means is that I think that obviously, not that any other coach could not, sell the attributes of the University of Dayton. But obviously, Anthony can speak with a great deal of authority on that subject. Having played here, having seen what it did for his life. That he was able to, be who he is thanks to the lessons that he learned at the University of Dayton.
Now let's talk about someone that just got drafted from basketball to football, Adam Troutman. Got drafted by the New Orleans Saints in the third round this past weekend. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I knew his draft stock. I knew he was a draftable player last year. He started to get some attention initially because some scouts were coming around to see punter Sean Smith. And obviously Adam had the size, okay? And so, there's been some great Dayton football players through the years, but oftentimes their size, or the lack thereof, or their speed, the lack thereof, they just don't translate to the next level. But Adam didn't have that obstacle. He had the size. I mean, he looked like an NFL tight end. And then once the scouts came around and looked at him and saw the way in which, he just caught everything. And, the way he practiced, what kind of teammate he was. I mean, he was first time maybe in the history of Dayton football, he was a unanimous team captain. I mean, every single player voted for him. And I can remember when he was a redshirt freshman and was Scout Team Player of the Year at the end of that year, Coach Chamberlain said to me, "Hey, you got to see this tight end we got. It was on Scout Team last year. I mean, he catches everything." So I really made it a point to watch him in practice in August. And what impressed me more was at the end of drills, they'd run sprints, and he won every sprint. Not because he was the fastest guy. I mean, he had plenty of speed, but he just ran hard every time. And it wasn't that phony hustle type stuff. It was just that's the speed at which he operated. He had only one way to go. And I think that's what made him a great player, because he made himself a great player.
I mean, he also had a very great redshirt senior year, especially with the 4 touchdowns against the Jacksonville Dolphins. I mean, tremendous player, and I think he'll do some great things with New Orleans.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they are getting, I did an interview with a New Orleans radio station over the weekend, and a guy said, "Do you think that they'll use him as a receiver or just a blocker?" I said, "Well, if they don't throw him the ball, they're crazy, because he's going to catch it. He's going to make plays."
I mean, that is a very talented offensive scheme that Drew Brees and the Saints have, but yeah, if Troutman doesn't get his fair shake on things, then I don't know what Sean Payton's thinking down there. But
yeah,
how special is it, since Dayton football is non-scholarship, how special is it to have Troutman go in the third round?
Well, I think it's a validation. What it is it's a validation for the program and for the league, for the PFL. It's a way of saying, hey, you can play at the next level here. You can do that. There is a path to the NFL through the PFL, through a program like the University of Dayton. Now, granted, most guys are not. Most guys are not. The guys that are going to be drafted are going to be episodic, but it's not out of the question.
Let's talk about the 2019 Flyer football season. What was your take on it?
Well, they could score points, just couldn't stop anyone. And I think that's kind of that's the nature of the game these days. Offenses are just so far ahead of defenses with the spread and everything that it really is hard to to slow someone down. And then you get you have weapons out there that if you got an Adam Troutman, look what the Flyers were able to do with that type of arsenal. But defensively, they struggled. They really did. They led the nation in scoring. But could not stop people, and that's what ultimately cost them a chance of having a PFL championship and getting a playoff berth.
Just to think, you lead the nation in offense. If you can stop more, I mean, that could be a really good season for UD.
Yeah, I mean, and it was, I mean, that was tough. That was really, really tough. That and it was never one thing. Sometimes it would be, just not, they would give up too many big plays. Sometimes they'd have a bad tackling game. A lot of times they just had guys just blow assignments that just absolutely, weren't where they were supposed to be. And granted, it was a young team, and so that that can account for some of it. That they weren't real experienced as far as playing a lot of college football yet. But at the same time, at some point in time, you got to get it done.
Now, you started calling football a couple years after your first year of men's basketball, but still a lot of great football throughout, great history. And
oh yeah,
I believe Mike Kelly was head coach back then.
Yeah. I my first football season was 1988, so this just wrapped up my 32nd, and there again, my timing is really good. My second year of football, they win a national championship, Division III national championship, go down to Phoenix City, Alabama, and beat Union in the Stag Bowl. And then, some great moments after leaving Division III and going FCS and being in the PFL. There's some games that I can recall. I mean, there was a game in 1996 out in San Diego, season finale to wrap up a year 11-0. And I still, to this day, that still may be the best football game I've ever seen. I mean, I think there was probably 5 scoring plays between the two teams of over 50 yards. And these weren't so much blown assignment plays as much as just guys making unbelievable plays on both sides of the ball. And, it went down to the wire, and it was just a great end to that season to finish up 11-0.
I mentioned Mike Kelly. Now he's your color commentator. Since your time at UD, you've worked with some knowledgeable broadcasters. Who's been some of your favorites and some of your favorite moments with them?
Well, I mean, I think everyone brought something different to the table. The different guys. Lieutenant Governor John Husted worked several years for me. In fact, I mentioned that San Diego game. He was alongside for that one in 1996, and Jeff Miller, another former Flyer, was alongside me for several years, and everyone brings something different to the table. And the thing is with Mike Kelly, I knew he was going to be extremely prepared. And I just, but what I was not prepared for was, I mean, this animated, excited, hot diggity dog guy in the booth. I just never saw that coming. And it's been really enjoyable to see that aspect of him come out.
It's 2 different personalities, because when he's working other sports at UD, he's just calm, cool, collected. But when you hear him on radio, it's, like you mentioned, just so animated, but very knowledgeable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's, there's nothing lost in the translation, certainly.
And for men's basketball, you had Bucky Bockhorn for the longest time, which, by the way, is Bucky okay?
Yeah, he's good. He's already talking about next year. He just had that back issue during the season, and it really kind of threw him for a loop.
That's good. I missed him throughout the year, but I think the people that filled in for him did a really nice job, like Brooks Hall. He was the one that I got to listen to the most, and I think he does a nice job.
Yeah, I mean, and there again, I really enjoyed having the variety, because I think that is a benefit to the fans, that they get varied perspectives. Brooks has that player's perspective, and is really thinks like a player. Keith has a player's perspective, but kind of more of an arm's distance. Having spent a lot of time overseas playing and knowing what it takes to play at the next level, he's able to not so much identify directly with the players. I mean, he's been there, done that, but I think, he's got a different vantage point. And then Josh Pastorino not only played at Dayton, but he also coached, and he really brings that coach's perspective. So I think it's a good thing for the listeners to have them all.
There's a lot of coaches and former players on there giving their view, and it really does add to it. It's something that you might not look at or hear, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we're blessed. I think we're blessed to have that, and really glad that each guy is able to contribute.
Now for football, the Flyers are in the Pioneer Football League, and men's basketball in almost every other sport, the Atlantic 10. What's some of your favorite trips and least favorite trips you've gotten to have over your career?
Well, it's we always joke about going to St. Bonaventure, and the bad part about that is getting there. And at one point in time, the facilities, the accommodations, like we stayed at this old motel. I can remember one of the first trips ever there, and to wake up in the morning and to find an inch of snow in your room was to have to walk barefoot through snow to get to your bathroom was a little that put things off a little bit. But then once you get to the game itself, I mean, the O'Reilly Center, St. Bonaventure is a great game venue. Well, that's super. Now you can go to Philadelphia and have amazing meals and all that kind of stuff, but then you go to the Tom Gola Arena Tire Center and Hair Care Salon, and you're like, is this real? Is this really a college basketball venue? I tend to lead towards, I guess, for everything involved, game day atmosphere, easy place to work. I mean, you don't have any technical issues or people that are, being a pain. I say the best is St. Louis, because I mean, it's an easy trip to get there. There's a couple restaurants that we've frequented through the years where they know us, and then they've got maybe the second best arena in the league, and good people, and it's it's a great atmosphere. I mean, they don't like Dayton, but that's what you want. I mean, you want to go someplace where you feel like you're part of something that matters. And that's really what it all boils down to. Is you want to, whether you're a player or a coach or a broadcaster, you want to feel like what you're doing actually matters.
And for football, you got some pretty close opponents. Indianapolis, Valparaiso, Indiana is not too far. And then randomly, San Diego, California. I mean, those got to be some big trips in the Pioneer.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, obviously that's a great opportunity, and it's a recruiting tool that, I think the coaches use well, because, it really is a difference between, you can be a preferred walk-on in the MAC, or you can come play at Dayton. You can ride buses to Muncie, Indiana, and Ypsilanti, Michigan, and Akron, Ohio, or you can go to San Diego, Florida, Charleston, North Carolina, or Poughkeepsie, New York, and it's and I talk to the guys, and it's something that it matters to them.
What's your thoughts about Jacksonville closing down their football program?
I was shocked. But then again, they've, in some ways, they've not been a great league member from the word go. From an institutional standpoint, they're just not, the snapshot of the institution doesn't look like a Pioneer Football League team. So maybe it does make sense. But nevertheless, I still was surprised, because it looked like they were trying to take things in a different direction, and one that would have been a little bit more in line with PFL standards, if you will.
I listen to the games and I always hear that Jacksonville is well coached and well disciplined. And when I saw the news, it's like, wow, that's a little bit sad.
Yeah, because like I say, they had been kind of a renegade program for a while, but they had, I thought, moved it in the right direction. They were, doing the right things.
Now, outside UD and WHIO, what else have you done in your broadcasting career?
Well, outside of WHIO, which I host the morning show and have for since 2003, and had done a lot of other things before that. I did some stuff for the Dayton Dragons early on their cable broadcasts on what is now Spectrum, but was, I think, Time Warner at the time. So yeah, I've just done those types of things. But primarily it's been, and it is good because I think it's fun to do baseball. To say, yeah, I got a chance to do some baseball once. And, never done hockey. I've done a lot of other sports through the years, including soccer and volleyball, but never done hockey.
Hockey's a blast. It's one of my favorite sports to broadcast. And I remember a couple seasons ago you got to broadcast a UD baseball game. And that leads me to my next question. Have you broadcasted any other sports for UD outside men's basketball or football?
Yeah, I did. But I just did a few baseball games. Did some men's and women's soccer, again, for the cable broadcast. Back in, this would have been, 96. Yeah, it would have been leading into the 96. Yeah, it would have been in the fall of 96. I did the A10 soccer tournament that was at Beaujean Field. And I did that, and it was on the local cable here, but it was also on Madison Square Garden Network, Yes New York, New England Sports Network, Comcast Philadelphia. And so that was kind of cool. And I just wrote Bill Glisson, who was a women's coach at UD for many years. He was the color guy, and I wrote him. He carried me so much, I think he knew my weight down to the ounce by the end of that tournament.
And for baseball, Jason King in his third year at the helm, Flyer baseball is looking dangerous.
Well, it's, and there, that's a tough battle. I don't think fans realize how hard it is in college baseball if you are not in a Sun Belt area or in the Southwest or just because of the nature of the season and not being able to get outdoors, and then then in turn it affects your recruiting footprint, where you're not able to be able to go out and evaluate and look at talent that's being able to play almost all year round. So I tip my hat to the successes of teams above the Mason-Dixon line when they have success, not just within their leagues, but a success that can translate to making an impact nationally. I tip my hat to them.
It's not easy, especially since winter likes to stay until about mid-April most seasons.
Yeah.
But luckily, I was able to catch 3 games, and that Flyer team looked really, really good. It was just a shame that was it. Bam. Just the one home series against Northern Kentucky, and that's all she wrote for baseball season.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the coronavirus, because that is an important issue affecting us worldwide. How has it affected you and your jobs?
Well, obviously it, I had planned on being, I had told people, I said, I can't make any commitments to any outside events or what have you until after the 1st of April, because I plan on being busy with the NCAA tournament. Well, I didn't have that, but then again, there wasn't anything else to commit to anyway. So yeah, for me, it's just it's it was going from 60 to 0. There was no easing, tapping the brakes. It was just a skid start, a skid stop, and it's just been like that since. So obviously, in being a part of a news program each day, like everyone else, I want distractions from this, because I can't shut it off, folks. I can't just say, well, you know what, I'm just going to ignore the whole thing and not think about it, and not read about it and not study it. I can't do that. It's my job to immerse myself in it. And to be honest with you, though, it gets to you sometimes. It really does.
I mean, your job is to inform the people what's happening, and there's not been a lot or any good news to come with this.
Yeah, yet.
Yes.
Yeah, there will be an all clear someday.
Here's hoping it's soon. But it wiped out the Atlantic 10 tournament completely. The women's tournament did get completed, which was nice, and it was nice to see the Flyers women's basketball team lift up the trophy on their home court. So that was really cool.
Yeah, so I mean, so that, and then like I mentioned, the fact that the celebration for the men's home finale did offer some sort of a closure and a celebration of a championship feel.
Larry, what are some of your favorite things about the local sports scene here in Dayton?
Well, I think what I like about it is that Dayton is autonomous. It is autonomous. Now, are there Reds fans and Bengals fans in the Dayton area? Yes. And then there are, to a large amount of Browns fans, and to a smaller degree, some Indians fans. But, we're not Cincinnati North. This is a very autonomous and a very parochial area, and I love that about it. In that, Friday nights, we're at high school football stadia. That's what we do here, and I love that, the fact that local sports have as high a profile as anything that would be happening at the collegiate level and at the professional level nationally. I mean, you go to some, I can remember going to Philadelphia and getting my hair cut during the A-10 tournament. I'm in a barbershop and getting my hair cut. And the guy says, "Where are you from?" "Dayton, Ohio." "What brings you here?" "We're here for the Atlantic 10 tournament." He goes, "What's that?" "What's that?" "Well, it's the leagues Dayton's in, along with LaSalle, St. Joe's." "Really?" "Oh, I had no idea." Yeah. So, most of the metropolitan areas are so consumed with professional sports that, like anything taking place collegiately or locally, they just don't, it doesn't resonate.
There's a lot of everything around here. I mean, like you mentioned, high school football, that's Fridays. Then you got college football Saturdays, and, pro football the next day. There's a little bit of everything for everyone here in the sports scene.
Yeah, well, in 2004, there was a game in February. Dayton played St. Joe's, hosted St. Joe's, and had a horrible snowstorm that weekend. The Dayton Mall was shut down. The mall was closed. Flyers had a sellout crowd that Saturday night, beat St. Joe's. The next day, everything is still shut down, completely snowbound, okay? Mm-hmm. Churches are closed. The Altar is playing Akron St. Vincent St. Mary with LeBron James, and CJ is going to play, I believe, Cincinnati Princeton in a doubleheader at the arena. Well, Princeton says they can't make it up. It's too snowy. Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's, they make it. And so it was Altar against LeBron, his high school team, and again, a sellout crowd. And not just sold out, tickets sold, I mean butts in the seat, sold out. On back-to-back nights when the area is supposedly completely shut down by snow. So that told me a lot about Dayton fans right there.
I mean, that's something that I always, tip my hat to UD fans. They are probably some of the most loyal that you can meet. It's fantastic. And when the malls and churches close, you think everything's closed, but nope, it's still basketball time. Get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot more than just. The only thing that can keep Flyer fans away is COVID-19.
Yeah, it's still such a shame, and it's the first tournament since what, the 30s or something like that. It hasn't been played.
Yeah, it's not good.
I mentioned a lot of great things about the Dayton sports scene, but in your eyes, what would you like to see more out of Dayton sports and Dayton sports media, or Dayton media in general?
No, I think just to keep the focus where it needs to be, and that is the focus on what is happening that is not going to get the attention of ESPN. That is what's happening with local athletes, local teams, the local stories about the people who are involved. I mean, news organizations are quick to say, well, we don't need to be doing any sports because sports fans can get all of that off of ESPN. Well, they can, national stuff, but that's not but that should not be the focus. We don't need to, if I want to know about the NFL draft, I'm probably not going to watch a local TV station. If I want to know about Adam Troutman's status, I will. And so that, that's the difference. And so, keep the focus local.
For those that are interested in joining the field in broadcasting, what advice and tips can you give?
Well, develop a brand. No one is going to, no one's going to give you job security. No one is going to give you anything. Your value to an employer or as a self-employed freelancer, if you will, is that you've got to have a brand. So focus on what is it you do that's unique. What is it that you do that makes you someone that people want to pay attention to give up something that's very valuable, and that is their time. And focus on that. Really kind of hone your brand. Okay, what is it that I do? It could be that you just do everything. You're a jack of all trades. There's something to be said for that. It could be that, I am the best BMX bicycle broadcaster in the nation, and focus on that, and have your niche. But you got to have a brand. You have to have a brand so that both an employer knows who you are and a listener, viewer, reader is going to know who you are.
I like that advice about, building the brand, being professional with it too. I like that piece of advice. Larry, how can people follow your work on social media?
At Larry Hansgen on Twitter, Larry Hansgen WHIO on Facebook, and and then the old-fashioned way, 1290 AM and 95.7 FM.
They can hear you on the radio waves. Larry, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real honor having you aboard. Any closing thoughts to wrap up this episode?
Just that there are brighter days ahead for all of us.
I like that closing thought. That's Larry Hansgen, and this is episode 144 of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast. Talk to you again for episode 145. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast with Lee W. Mowen. To subscribe to the podcast, please visit theleewmowen.com/podcast. From there, you can choose your favorite platform, such as Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, TuneIn, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, and many more. Interact with the podcast and host on Twitter at the Lee W. Mowen and at CindayPod. Like the Facebook page, the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, and download the free Flick Chat app, then search for the local Cinday Sports Group to submit your future Mowins mailbag questions. The closing theme is Lights Go Down by Dan Hennig, provided by the YouTube Music Library Collection. This is Lee W. Mowin, and I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Please join me again next week on the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast.